Hello everyone. In this topic, we'll discuss about cloud deployment models. There are three main cloud deployment models: private, public, and hybrid. In private cloud, the organization owns the entire infrastructure. So if they have the private cloud infrastructure, organization owns the entire. The organization is solely responsible for their infrastructure and they don't share their infrastructure to any other customer. So this private cloud is solely owned by the organization and used by the organization for their services. Private cloud provides greater control of the IT infrastructure. The hardware and the data is under control of the organization. Cost to procure and host the infrastructure is high. Organization can build the private cloud in their own data center, or they can even choose the third-party data center. What they will be doing is they have the hardware layer. On top of the hardware layer, they will use the virtualization layer. So this virtualization layer can be of Hyper-V, VMware, or Citrix. And on top of the virtualization layer, they will have orchestration layer. So this orchestration layer will deploy the services. So whenever we are building the private cloud infrastructure, very often we see these private cloud are capable of doing only infrastructure as a service, or very rarely we will see it can be used for platform as a service, and software as a service it is very rare to see in private cloud. Let us see what is public cloud. In public cloud, there is no hardware to manage, no data center space required. All the resources are shared between multiple customers. To access public cloud, all we need is, let us say we wanted to access Azure cloud, all we need to have is subscription and internet. So we'll be able to deploy the services onto the cloud. A public cloud is built, controlled, and maintained by a third-party cloud provider. So in this particular case, it's Microsoft who owns the public cloud infrastructure. This is for the Azure cloud. And we can deploy the services very fast, which is not possible in the private cloud. Like if I wanted to deploy web applications or functions, I'll be able to easily deploy on the public cloud service platform rather than deploying in the private cloud. For me, it is very easy to deploy these services on the public cloud. Let us see what is hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is the combination of private cloud and public cloud. Let us say we have our own private cloud infrastructure in our own data center. So this is my private cloud. And there are some of the services which are not available in the private cloud, for which I'll be using the public cloud. So this is the Azure public cloud. I can have connection between private and public cloud using site-to-site connection or express route. If I wanted to access some of the services like containers, let us say I have virtual machines which are created inside my private cloud. I have hundreds of virtual machines. I wanted to back up all these virtual machines. I can configure the backup to move all the backup to the public cloud environment. I can create storage account and I'll be able to move all my backup to this particular storage account. Or if I wanted to use public cloud for identity and access management, I can use Entra ID for identity as a service so that all the services which are deployed in the private cloud can authenticate using the public cloud. And if I wanted to use some of the services in the public cloud, container as a service, Kubernetes as a service, and functions Office 365, I can actually integrate with the public cloud, because if I wanted to build all these services, it will take time in my private cloud environment, and it is also not very easy to build these kind of services inside the private cloud. So basically, for the services which are very difficult to deploy and manage inside the private cloud, I'll be using the public cloud in this environment. And the combination of using both the services inside the private cloud and public cloud, it will be hybrid cloud environment. Let us do the comparison of cloud models. In public cloud, there is no capital expenditure. In private cloud, we have capital expenditure for the data center, for the hardware, for the operating system licenses, software licenses, everything the organization has to procure and manage. And also, they need to keep the inventory of all the infrastructure resources. In hybrid cloud, provides the most flexibility, because we are combining the resources which are not available in the private cloud and using those services in public cloud. So in public cloud, we'll be able to quickly provision and deprovision the services and resources. In private cloud, data is not co-located with other organizations' data. So in public cloud, basically, we share the resources with other customers. In private cloud, it is solely one company's infrastructure, and the data is completely in control with the organization. And when it comes to hybrid cloud, we have an option to choose where our application is running. If my application is business critical and it is very critical application, I can choose it to run in my private cloud environment. I can also use the less critical application in the public cloud infrastructure. So I have the option over here. So I can decide where the application has to run, whether it has to run in public cloud or private cloud. And the payment method in public cloud is, we will be paying only for the resources what we have consumed, and we will be charged on monthly basis. In private cloud, we need to purchase the infrastructure related hardware, and also we need to maintain those hardware as well. When it comes to the control over resources and security, in public cloud, the customer doesn't have control over the resources and security. It will be shared responsibility between the cloud service provider and the customer. In private cloud, organization has full control of their hardware and their infrastructure, and also they need to do maintenance and update for any hardware devices and also software. In hybrid cloud, since organization can decide which application has to run on which cloud service platform, they have the control over security, compliance, and legal requirements. Let us see what is multi-cloud. In a multi-cloud scenario, you will be using multiple cloud service provider. If you are running your services inside Azure cloud, you might be requiring the high availability or DR setup for your infrastructure, and you don't want to deploy all the resources into the same cloud service provider. Hence, you will choose another cloud service provider for your HAR DR requirements. And also, it can be like, if you don't have the services in one of the cloud service provider, you can actually integrate your application if there are some of the services which are available in another cloud service provider. Also, it can be like, you have hosted all your services and resources in one of the cloud service provider. It can be AWS or Google, and you are in the process of migrating from AWS and Google to Azure. So basically, in a multi-cloud environment, we will be dealing with two or more public cloud providers. So in hybrid cloud model, we'll be dealing with private and public. But in multi-cloud environment, what we'll be doing is, we'll be dealing with two or more public cloud providers. It will be public and public. It will be Azure, AWS, or Google. So we will be dealing with two or more cloud service provider. Let us see what is Azure Arc. I have a separate topic in upcoming session for Azure Arc. So Azure Arc is a separate service. It is a unified management portal. to manage your on-prem environment. You can also manage the other cloud service resources. So you need to onboard the resources which you wanted to manage using the Azure Arc. So basically it is a single view where you will be managing the on-prem resources and even the other cloud services resources into a single management portal, which is Azure Arc. All you need to do is you need to onboard the resources which you wanted to manage using the Azure Arc. There are some of the resources which can be managed using Azure Arc. Not all the resources are supported at this time. You need to check the documentation, the resources which are supported for Azure Arc. We can onboard some of the resources like physical server. If physical server is running inside the data center or on-prem environment, we will be able to onboard the physical servers into the Azure Arc to manage. And also if we are using VMware vCenter, we will be able to manage all the VMware virtual machines using Azure Arc. So we need to onboard these resources inside the Azure Arc, and we can also onboard SQL Server as well. So check the documentation for the resources which are supported for Azure Arc. There are number of resources which are supported at this particular time. So it is always better to check the documentation and onboard those resources inside the Azure Arc. Let us see what is Azure VMware solution. If an organization is already using the VMware infrastructure, like they have the VMware clusters running in their data center, let us say this is ESX environment or vSphere environment, which they have already using, and if they wanted to leverage the VMware solution on the Azure cloud, they can use the Azure VMware solution. The solution what Azure is providing is a validated design. So this is a validated design for VMware, and at minimum we can use 3 hosts. 3 hosts will be provided by Azure, and it can go up to 16 hosts. On these 3 bare metal servers, there will be a vSphere installed, and you will be also provided with vCenter, vSAN, and NSX. So these services will be provided by Microsoft. This is a fully managed service by Microsoft Azure. There is no need to worry about the licenses for vSphere, vCenter, vSAN, and NSX. All you need to do is you need to pay only for the usage, and you will be able to build your virtual machine seamlessly on your data center or inside the Azure VMware solution. And if you have Express Route, you can seamlessly integrate the applications which are running in the on-prem environment with the Azure VMware solution. This was an overview about cloud deployment models. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe and share the video. Thank you and take care.